Hello and welcome back to Shanti Finance. We are back again to watercolor today, and I'm going to demonstrate a watercolor portrait today, and I'm going to talk about how to get good skin tones in watercolor today, in skin tones with watercolor today. And that is all about today. So without much ado, I'm going to move over to the actual tutorial and time lapse. I hope you enjoy it. Leave me likes and comments so that I understand how you feel about it. And do not forget to hit the subscribe button. That is the only way to keep up with what I'm currently working on and what is coming up. Thank you for watching. I'm starting off with the background and very light colors as is my rule of thumb in case of watercolors. Next, I am putting in colors in the hat area, and even before starting I have put some masking fluid in certain areas of eyes and teeth and hair where I thought they were the highest lightest areas, or rather the highlighted areas, and on top of that I am applying my first layers of color. Now, when doing skin tones, there are three colors. No matter what kind of skin tone it is, dark, light, or whatever, there are three colors that would be required. There is yellow ochre, there is some sort of red, I generally use crimson, and of course white to deepen or lighten. And to add shadows or make it darker, we add in some blue. I generally use ultramarine or cobalt blue. So these are the three, or rather four main colors. However, while creating skin tones, it is important to remember that we have to pay very close attention to the reference photo. The reason being, the kind of light there is in the reference photo, the kind of shadows that are in the reference photo can bring in a lot more colors than the starting point of yellow, red, blue and white. Like in this particular portrait, you will see that I am bringing in a lot of blues and purples because of the shadow of the hat and because of such a camera angle at which this reference photo had been photographed, or rather this model has been photographed, that it is a very shady photo, and there is the color is based on like purplish bluish tones. There is a lot of pastel tones, there's a lot of cool tones instead of the general usual warmer tones of skin. So that is why I'm saying that it is very important to pay close attention to the reference photo, because without the reference photo I probably would have made it a very reddish, orangish, yellowish kind of skin tone. But because I have the reference photo and because this lady is very fair skinned, so the combination of the shadows and the light used in the reference photo makes it a very makes use of a lot of cool tones and a lot of shadow colors, and so I'm bringing in a lot of purples and blues. Now, coming back to this particular portrait, you can see that I am continuously building layers after layers after layers. In certain cases, I'm allowing the layer to dry, and then I am adding in one more layer on top of the dried layer. Sometimes when I want very blurred and very smooth mixing, then I am working wet on wet and letting the colors blend themselves. So it is important to understand which areas you would require wet to work in wet and wet, and which areas would require to work wet on dry. So as a rule of thumb, you work wet on wet when you want very smooth blending, and you want work wet on dry when you just want to add another layer and you can have you can afford to have rough edges. So I am keeping on building more layers. The more darker I'm going, the more darker my colors are getting. I'm adding more of blues and reds than I was adding in my initial layers. And At this point, I'm not even like halfway through, and I probably spent quite a lot of time. So you see, like although watercolor is probably not as time consuming as oil paints because of the drying time, it is not a very fast medium either. And because you cannot go back, you cannot erase, or you cannot paint over as easily as an oil paints, it is better to make sure, have a plan before you start painting. I am slowly building up layers as well as adding in details. Now I'm working more into the details. This is my favorite part of the painting, where I paint the eyes. In any kind of portrait, painting the eyes is generally the favorite part of most artists. I am no exceptions, because eyes kind of brings the portrait to life. Even in case of birds and other living beings, eyes, I think, is the most important part of any portrait, not only human. So you could see that right now I'm working on the lip and the teeth area. Now in the teeth area, it is very important to understand that the only shadows you put is on the sides, and try not to put in too much detail, otherwise it can look very artificial, very clumsy. So be very light with the detail that you put in the teeth. Like you see that I am adding shadows, I am adding lines, but they are very light shadows, very light lines. Now I'm adding details to the hat, and although I could have added a lot more details in different areas of the hat, at one point I decided to stop and not focus too much on the accessories, because I wanted the main attraction of this painting to be the eyes, or rather the face around the eyes. So right now I'm building on a little bit of texture on the hat to kind of show the thread work on the hat, and also putting in some shadows first, and you will see that now I am building on the inner side of the hat. Again, going back to the top of the head. So this will keep continuing for a while, going back and forth. I have painted in different areas and kept jumping around, trying to pull everything together, because that kind of would give me a general feel of how lighter or darker I need to go with the face. So that's why I am kind of not staying focused in one area, and kind of going all over the painting and making sure everything comes together, ties together in the end. And as for skin tones, like I was saying, it is very much important to build the layers. You will never get very realistic, very smooth blends and good shadows and nice fine detail work in just one go. Whether it is oil painting, oil pastels, watercolor, acrylic, whatever medium you're working on, as soon as you're working portraits and working realistic style, you will have to work in layers. And that being said, I'm not saying that people who work wet on wet, a la prima, and oils and oil pastels cannot get details, but that layering, wet on wet, also can have a lot of layers. So by layering, I don't generally, I'm not meaning just glazing, but layering as in trying to build up slowly. Another important thing about painting portraits with watercolor is that focus on the shadow areas and make sure that you're adding enough darks in the shadow areas, and you're building a very good hyped up contrast between darker and lighter areas of the face. And I would like to apologize at this point for the continuously changing light. That's because I am continuously moving. Probably that's kind of bothering the camera angle, and I'm not really sure why the light keeps changing in the video, and I really apologize for that. So I am almost done with most parts of my hat. I'm not going to build in too much more details and go to the hair. As you can see, a lot of the part of the hair I have covered with masking fluid so that it stays so that the white of the paper stays white, because those are the ones that are highlighted, and those are the lightest parts of the hair. They're the highlights, and I want them to remain very light till about the end, and I barely would put any colors anyways. And there I'm adding the final layer to the shadows and darkening the eyes and the lips, adding a little touch up. And you will see that around the neck area, the blending, and finally I couldn't get it to make it as smooth as I wanted it to. I should have probably kept it more wet and worked faster, but I am a slow painter in general, so I will have to adapt to this particular medium more and get used to getting better blendings faster. And adding a little bit detail to the clothing of the lady, and not a lot though. Like I said, I wanted the main focus to be the face. I want to hype up the contrast, but not too much. Darkening the hair around the jewelry so that the earrings pop up, and deepening the contrast constantly. And even in the hair, I have used a combination of blue and black instead of straight away going for black, because I do use a lot of black, but I generally do not use straight up black. And there we come to the end of the painting. Thank you for watching.